Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. This webinar is sponsored by the University Council of Educational Administration, and I'm Pamela Tucker, Senior Associate Director of UCA, and joining me today are Corey Groth and Diana Pounder, both from the Education Policy Center at the University of Utah. The topic of this webinar today is the Inspire Graduates Survey. INSPIRE is an acronym for the Initiative for Systemic Program Improvement through Research in Educational Leadership. And the Graduate Survey is one of 4 surveys in the overall INSPIRE suite. Before we discuss the INSPIRE suite of survey tools and the Graduate Survey, we want to acknowledge our colleagues who are not on the call today. Next slide, please. Thank you. The INSPIRE Leadership Development Team includes the following individuals. And we're grateful for all of the collaboration we've been able to do together. Before I begin with the actual formal PowerPoint presentation content, I just want to go over a logistical detail. Currently, we have everyone muted so that we reduce the feedback during the webinar, but we do want to respond to your questions. We want to make this interactive. We'll save time at the end, but if there are questions that you have as we're going along, please type them in the area that says chat down at the bottom of your sidebar. And we'll monitor those questions, and if it's appropriate to insert them during the presentation, we'll share them with other callers and answer them. If not, we'll wait to the end and answer them all at that point. So please do type in your questions, and we'll try and handle them as is appropriate during the webinar today as we go through the slides. So, as I mentioned earlier, next slide please. As I mentioned earlier, there are 4 survey instruments in the INSPIRE suite, and you can read down through them. The 4 survey instruments are the Preparation Program Edition, the Graduate Edition, the Leaders in Practice Edition, and the 360 Edition. The program preparation, going back at the top and going down, the Program Preparation Edition is typically completed by the program coordinator, and it addresses program and the program overall and core program features. The Graduate Edition is completed by program graduates and solicits their perceptions about the program and their learning outcomes as a result of that program. The Leaders in Practice Edition is again feedback from program graduates who are in principalships, and they reflect on their leadership practices, school improvement, and organizational indicators. The final survey in the suite solicits perceptions from the supervisors and teachers working with the program graduate and gives feedback on their leadership practices. So those are the 4 surveys in this suite. And just to recap, the INSPIRE, next slide please, the INSPIRE suite provides data on program features with the first survey instrument, graduate perspectives, leaders' perspective of their practice once program graduates are in a leadership position, and the 4th one is feedback from others about the leaders' school improvement work once they assume a role as school leader. Next slide. So data from this entire suite of survey instruments from the INSPIRE suite enables programs to continuously monitor their own program quality for program improvement purposes, share results with their stakeholders and accreditation bodies, and fourth, the data can be used for research on program processes and outcomes. So it serves all four purposes, both internally, externally, and for research purposes as you examine your own practice and what kinds of outcomes are produced as a result of the program experience by students. Next, we're going to talk specifically about the graduate survey, and Diana Pounder is going to take over at this point.
Hello there. The graduate edition, which is the focus of this webinar, is administered to program graduates either upon exiting the program, for example, within the last month or so of their program completion, or typically within no more than a year after they complete the program. It's obviously you're more likely to get reliable and valid responses when somebody has completed the program recently. But there are two major foci on the graduate edition. First is a series of questions that ask the graduates about their perception of their preparation program quality. And specifically, they address issues of the rigor and relevance of the program, the quality of the faculty, the peer relationships within the program, program accessibility, and questions about internship design and quality. The second major focus in the survey is about their perceptions of their own learning. And we particularly align these learning outcomes with national standards for leader preparation, the new PSEL standards, Professional Standards for Educational Leaders. And anyway, the learning outcome dimensions include ethics and professional norms, strategic leadership, operations and management, instructional leadership, professional and organizational culture, supportive and equitable learning environment, and family and community engagement. So they are asked a series of questions on each of these scales that get at their self-report of their own learning outcomes. Next slide. This slide gives us similar information. In addition to the two major foci of program quality and learning outcomes, there is also information about the candidate's background. So you can collect data on specifically, especially if you have multiple programs, which program were they in, which degree and or license did they earn, what was their enrollment period, completion dates, things like that. Similarly, what is there are a series of questions about their professional background and career aspirations, and demographic data such as gender, race, and age. Next slide. These are the program quality dimensions I've mentioned before. To give you a little bit more specificity, faculty quality, for example, ask questions that deal with faculty knowledge, instructional competence, responsiveness, so forth and so on. The rigor and relevance dimension gets at the coherence of the program, the relevance of the program to school improvement and administrative practice, the balance of theory and practice, and so on. Peer relationships gets at the strength and the support of peer dynamics within the context of the program. Program accessibility gets at the accessibility of coursework times, location, there's a question about online offerings, things like that. And lastly, internship question. There are a number of questions about the type of internship, the relevance of it, learning potential, the quality of the supervision of the internship, and so forth. Next slide. Now, the learning outcomes, and I've outlined those dimensions on the left-hand column there. The center column on this slide shows you a brief description of the kinds of questions that are on each of these variable scales. For example, in ethics and professional norms, there are questions about administrative openness, accessibility of the administrator, their moral compass, things like that. And that particular variable scale is aligned with the professional standards for educational leadership, national standards, the new ones that came out that have 10 standards. It aligns particularly with standard number 1 and number 2. Strategic leadership gets largely at issues on school improvement efforts of the administrator and or the graduate, and what did they learn about school improvement, and aligns particularly with the PSEL standard number 10 and number 1 on school improvement and mission, vision, and core values. Similarly, as you go down, operations and management gets at learning related to the management of fiscal and human resources, school facilities, school data, that kind of thing. And again, aligns with PSEL standard number 9, operations and management. And you can see as you go through each of these, you can get a sense of the kinds of questions that the graduates are being asked about their own learning and how those align with national standards, which many, or I might say most of our programs are organized around. Next slide. All of these variable scales that have been included on the graduate survey have been administered multiple times in order to improve the instrument's reliability and validity, and correspondingly reduce the number of items and administration time so that it was a manageable survey that didn't contribute to respondent fatigue and so forth. The most recent psychometric data we have is based on a sample of more than 300 respondents from 10 preparation programs nationally. We did factor analyses on the scales to establish the construct validity of the variable scales, and we also tested all scales for reliability, in particular internal consistency. If we go to the next slide, you'll see some of the psychometric specifics on the variable scales. For example, on the program quality scales, rigor and relevance scale, 7 items, and it has an internal consistency at Cronbach's alpha of 0.94, faculty quality 0.91, pure relationships 0.85, internship quality 0.88. The only variable scale that has more moderate reliability is program accessibility, and I think it's in large part because there's a lot of variance when you ask questions about online learning opportunities. There's a huge variance in respondents and probably program offerings and so forth, and I think that contributes to a somewhat less internal consistency in responses. It is the only variable scale, however, that has a more moderate reliability. All the rest are quite high. Go on the next scale, if you'll see on the next slide, similarly, learning outcome scale, all of those reliabilities are quite high 0.8s up to mid 0.9s. So I think the instruments have been carefully developed and piloted and revised to increase both the usability of them and the defensibility of them. Next slide. Corey Groth is going to take over at this point for the next slides. Corey?
Hi, thanks for joining us. This is Corey Groth. This slide is a way to illustrate the alignment between the program preparation survey and the graduate edition. So we can see that we
Sorry,
the column on the left,
that's me.
shows the program conditions and content. So the kind of the inputs of program preparation, degree and licensure, the program requirements, program delivery, program curriculum and instructional strategies, program assessments, and program evaluation. So these are features of the the program preparation survey that are linked to the outcomes, the program quality here under Inspire G, the rigor and relevance of the program and the peer relationships. And part of this logic model here is to illustrate the ways that these features of the program preparation, program staffing and internship as well, contribute to program quality. Rigor and relevance, peer relationships, faculty quality, and internship quality. And that the program quality then is expected to lead to these program outcomes. So the leadership practices and outcomes around ethical and professional norms, management, operations, instructional leadership, strategic leadership, supportive learning environments, family and community relationships, and then as well their beliefs about principalship. So these constructs in both the program preparations survey instrument as well as the graduate edition are based on the research-based program quality constructs. So as Diana mentioned, we've been very careful to make sure that the instruments reflect the best evidence we have from the field and what makes up a good preparation program that leads to these kinds of expected outcomes aligned with the standards. Next slide, please. So the other thing that we wanted to share with you are some examples of how folks have used the information gathered from the graduate survey in their preparation program evaluation work. So, for example, we've heard from some users of the survey who've used the Inspire results, for example, during faculty or department reviews of programs to identify strengths and areas for improvement. One of the things that we have created is a discussion guide to go along with the graduate survey to support kind of an intentional discussion about the survey findings that guide you to think about where are the areas of strengths and where are some areas for improvement. We've also heard from folks about how they've used the results to compare outcomes across programs. So many institutions have different preparation programs where they can compare the outcomes based on program participation. We've also heard about the use of Inspire results as they are included in accreditation reports. And then finally, some institutions have used the Inspire results as part of a broader evaluation of their program and have provided this information to external evaluators as part of a fuller data collection process. So there are really a number of ways that these results can be used, and we are continually working to make sure that the results are user-friendly and that, as I mentioned before, we've got a discussion guide with the facilitation toolkit for going through the results as a team, as a faculty or department. And we'd love to continue to work with people who are using this in the field to make sure that that the information is really results in improved preparation programs. The next slide includes a few example, some quotes from a few folks that have used the survey results as part of their improvement process. So Anne O'Doherty shared with us how she used the program or the graduate edition results when they were at University of Texas at Austin. And one of the things that I think she talked about is that they get data back from the field from their graduates, but sometimes it's informal or not systematically collected, and so this provides a way to systematically document and learn about the outcomes from graduates either annually or biannually so that you can track these changes over time. And especially it's nice to have this information when you make changes to the program, to your program, to see if those changes are resulting in you can see that show up in the perspectives of the graduates. Susan Korish has also used the results from the graduate survey in her program at the University of Denver, and has talked about how they used the information to make some tweaks and improvements to their program. And she says, without these types of data, I'm afraid we'd still be trying to decide where to focus. So again, this has helped programs to prioritize where they want to make some changes and make some improvements based on the research-based quality program constructs. So then finally, the next slide talks about the annual pricing. And so the great part about this is for UCEA member institutions, the annual price for the graduate edition to be administered online is free with your membership. This includes participation in the program features survey. The additional pricing for the Leaders in Practice edition and the 360 edition are seen here in the second column. So it's $1,500 per administration for up to 75 participants, and then a $25 per additional fee per additional participant for the Leaders in Practice, and then the same is for the 360 edition. All of the survey results are provided. You're provided with a basic report of item descriptives and information that can be used both online, and you can print out your results that are fairly basic, but for additional costs, we can do additional analyses with you or for you. So, and then on the final column, you can see the pricing for non-member institutions. So, the goal is to try to make this available to UCA member institutions at a very reasonable cost. We're excited about the benefits of the survey. We've heard from folks that this has been helpful, and so we're excited to get more institutions on board so that we can work together to improve program preparation in the field.
Corey, I want to add for those institutions that are not UCA members and may be particularly small programs, another option is to, rather than administering the instrument, the program features or the graduate survey administered annually, to do it every few years. And the downside of that, obviously, is when a graduate gets further away from their program completion, the reliability of their responses may not be as strong as it would immediately upon program completion. Nonetheless, it would allow you to reduce your cost and have a larger sample size if you have graduates included over, maybe 3 or 4 years. So anyway.
One thing I was going to add too about the graduate edition that as for UCA member institutions, we also offer up to about 5 additional items that can be tailored to your own program that are not part of the core construct. So, for example, we've worked with institutions who want to ask some very specific questions about their own program, and so we've added those to the instrument that you. So it's a nice option for those who have some kind of unique features about your program that you want information back from the graduates about. We didn't have a slide about that, but that's something that we offer as part of the online administration of the survey. So I think that ends all of our informational slides. So you can see on the next slide the information to go for more, or where to go for more information. And I think, Marcia, are we going to open it up for questions now?
Yes, we have a number of really good questions from the audience, which is what we were hoping for. And to start off, the first question we have is, does Inspire G tap into the construct of efficacy?
I can address that in part, and Corey, you may be able to address that as well. This is Diana. Most of the questions on the learning outcomes portion of the instrument are getting exactly at that. To what degree do they feel that their program helped them learn about this, learn about that, learn about something else? But in particular, some of the questions about the internship get more at the application of that learning to actual practice. And so while there is no efficacy scale per se, the internship piece more nearly gets at to what degree the internship enhanced their application of their learning to practice.
Great, thank you. The next question is, do any internship questions address questions about partnerships between university and the school or district?
Corey, you want to get that about the program? That's about the program survey.
Yeah, there are no specific questions that ask about the partnership per se, but there are questions about the partnerships on the program preparation edition, and that is a great example of an item that we could add to, to the core constructs of the graduate edition, if that's something that's a high priority to get feedback about. So I guess there aren't any. Yeah, so there aren't any questions about the partnerships, but there's room
not on the graduate survey, but there is on the preparation program survey, the earlier survey.
That's correct.
That the program coordinator completes.
That's correct. And so if you're interested in getting feedback from your graduates about the partnership between the institution and the school districts on the graduate edition, that would be something that you could add as an optional item.
Great, thank you. The next question is, has consideration been given relative to how this data will assist programs in states where CAPE accreditation is required?
I can speak to that. Because CAPE is putting a lot more emphasis on outcome data, learning outcomes, job placement, performance effectiveness, and so forth. The graduate survey in particular provides evidence of learning outcomes, and then the subsequent leaders in practice and 360-degree survey really get at an assessment of that leader, once somebody has become a leader after completing your program, their effectiveness in their leadership role. So yes, I mean, and by the way, the leaders in practice survey and the 360-degree survey really get at how the leader shapes conditions in the school that we know have a favorable influence on student outcomes, K-12 student outcomes.
Yeah, I think the benefit of administering the leaders in practice or the 360 edition is that you are also getting information about the conditions in the schools where your graduates are leading, and so you're able to collect the chain of evidence from their participation in the program as well as into the field.
Great, thank you. The next question or comment says, great information and important work. Thanks to all the presenters. Where can we learn more about the validity and reliability studies behind the development of the Inspire Suite?
There's one published study in the Journal of Leadership Education based on the testing of instruments, an earlier version of these instruments, and it reports reliability and validity and so forth. However, based on those earlier studies, that published work in the Journal of Leadership Education, this newer instrument is refined that much more. And the psychometric information about that has not yet been published in a journal article. I mean, what you're seeing in this PowerPoint is as much as been publicly shared.
Great. The next question. Does UCEA use the data for its own purposes?
Meaning, I'm not sure I understand the question. I'm meaning to say, if does UCEA have access to the data from all these different institutions that participate? Is that, Corey, do you think that's the question?
Yeah, I'm wondering maybe, so we've shared the results of the program preparation administration this past year at the plenum, and so we're using the findings to inform, our work. But I'm maybe not sure what the question means in terms of.
When you say you're using the findings, it's aggregated data, but you do not report the data of any given institution by name. You don't say the University of Maryland's results are this and the University of Utah's results are that. Correct?
Yeah, that was all aggregate data.
Right. We're talking aggregate data across a sample of 100 or more institutions, not the individual institution data is not shared publicly.
Mm-hmm.
And Corey, there is an agreement that's signed when an institution comes to the evaluation center for administration of the survey, correct?
Well, so we handle all the online administration for you. If there is a request to receive the data, there is a data sharing agreement that we can put in place for you to get the actual all of the data back. Most folks have found that the results that we provide with our reports are useful, but we have also worked with institutions who want the data for themselves to incorporate into other kinds of analyses. So yes, we do have a data sharing agreement and process in place if that's needed.
Next question. How long does it normally take to get this completed and get the results?
So we have 2 windows of a year for administering the graduate survey, between March and into July for the first window, and then another window in October, November, December. And so what happens is so if an institution is interested in administering the graduate survey, they would send me the contact information for the graduates who they want to give the survey to. This is administered online, and so we send an email with the link to the survey with automated reminders, and we usually like to leave the window open for, depending on the circumstances, 2 maybe up to 4 weeks. Some folks have administered the survey right on site at the end of a program, which increases response rates, but most of the time it's done by email. And we can have, once the survey is closed, we can have all of the results back to you within, it usually takes about 2 weeks once the survey is closed.
Great.
I hope that answers the question.
The next question is related to the CAPE inquiry we had earlier, but in case there's any additional elaboration, seems like we're getting questions about that, but it says, have any institutions used the survey for CAPE?
I do believe they have. We have not conducted a follow-up survey related to that particular question, so I don't know if I can say systematically which institutions have or have not, but I do know that a handful have included the results as part of their CAPE accreditation process.
Fantastic. Next is a bottom line question. Will results remain private to the institution?
Yes. So any institution that we work with, we give the results back to that department or program. So it's the aggregate report of results, and we do not share that report with anyone else but the institution.
Great, thank you. Next question. The title of the webinar implies that the Inspire Suite is intended for principal preparation programs. Can the instruments be adapted to collect data on superintendent preparation programs?
Well, that's a great question. We have it is part of our long-term plan to develop a version for the superintendent program. Pam and Diana, I don't remember our timeline though.
I'm fuzzy too. Obviously that we'd have to make sure that the series of questions are more specifically aligned to superintendent responsibilities as opposed to school building level administrative responsibilities.
Yeah, it wasn't that this particular instrument is not necessarily the one, but we have in our plans talking about developing the superintendent version.
Yeah.
Correct, but no timeline on it at this point. We want this one solidly in place and then move forward. On the CAPE question, I just want to clarify somewhat. CAPE is still developing their standards for advanced programs, which leadership programs are considered advanced programs because they build on a teaching license in almost every state. They're still working through that, so I'm not sure if some leadership programs have been reviewed yet with the new CAPE advanced program standards.
Yeah, I've just heard a few have been in the process with CAPE and have been. They've let me know that their results are going to be part of their body of work.
Right, it would be future tense
yes.
at this point. I think some schools have used it with TIAC or NCAPE historically. Moving forward, CAPE is still in the process of approving those final standards for advanced programs.
Thanks, Pam.
Great.
Marcy, there are some folks who had their hands up that I could see in our listing of attendees, and I wondered if you wanted to give them a chance to make sure they've entered their question.
Absolutely. Please do. I'm fielding the questions down as they come in, so feel free to enter them, and we will be most happy to field those. The next question I have that I'm seeing is, does the 360 survey allow for separate analysis of supervisors' evaluation of graduates' performance? If so, have psychometric properties of supervisors' ratings been analyzed?
Go ahead, Diana.
The field testing of the instrument used for the 360 has largely been done with multiple cohorts of a single university at this point in time. And so Susan Korach has worked on that. I haven't worked directly with that data set. Susan's worked with it more than I have. So I know that there have been evaluation of the psychometric properties when there's a larger response set, such as teachers. I'm honestly just not sure about the superintendents. Do you know, Corey?
No, we don't. With
Okay.
the supervisors.
Okay.
Next question. Are sample reports available?
Yes, we can provide a sample report. I think probably the easiest way is to email me, and I can provide links to sample reports.
Corey, do you want them to write to uca@virginia.edu and we forward it to you, or do you want to give your email now?
Oh, I thought it was, sorry, I thought it was on there. Actually, how about Marcy? I will provide a link to a sample report that we can share with everyone.
Great.
That's an even better idea. That's great.
So the next question is a follow-up, a clarification on the supervisor or the superintendent question. That there is an interest in further understanding the district level leader survey that isn't necessarily specific to the role of the superintendent.
I think that's an excellent idea. I feel confident that whatever instrument we develop will be more broadly focused on district leadership as opposed to just superintendent's role. And I probably just spoke off the top of my head because I always think of superintendent, but we probably would be ill-advised to develop an instrument for the superintendent's role, the curriculum and instruction leader's role, the HR director's role, all the various central office things. So I think it's much more likely that it would be defined around district leadership, as is this current one that's defined. You don't have to be a principal per se, but have to be involved in building level leadership. So it might be used for assistant principals as well as principals or other building level leaders.
Great. It appears that there is a hand raised. I'm looking in the audience. Jamie Stacks.
Yes, I was interested in the superintendent survey as well, but my question has been answered, so I need to lower my hand. And thank you.
Absolutely, you're welcome. Are there any other questions or comments? If not, we will say thank you greatly for your time and for joining us today. We certainly appreciate it. Feel free to contact us at uceea@virginia.edu with any questions you have that come up later. And give us 2 to 3 days, and we will post the recorded audio of this webinar on our webpage. Please do give us a couple days for that. But thank you so much to all the panelists and all the attendees. Diana, Corey, Pam, any comments?
Thank you very much to the participants.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a good afternoon.
And have a great afternoon.